Well, yeah, I just wanted to start by thanking you for talking to me, and perhaps you could introduce yourself, who you are, and indeed where you are.
Okay, my name is Alvin Yew. I'm the program manager for NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts. We call that NIAC. And we're located in, NIAC runs out of the Space Technology Mission Directorate out of NASA headquarters. I'm at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. So it's just about 20 miles or so from headquarters, not even maybe. And we, we're a program that funds visionary ideas for the agency. Some really far out ideas that may not come to fruition for maybe 10, 20, or 30 years down the road.
Yeah. So, I mean, for how long has this initiative been running?
Uh, well, actually, Nyack has a beautiful history, and history is not my forte, but I'll try to do it some justice, and of course, in the brief time that we have here. Um, NIAC originally formed as the NASA Institute for Advanced Research. And that was formed in 1998, and it ran for 9 years. And for various reasons, budget and political reasons, it concluded 9 years after that institute started. Uh, then the National Research Council did an independent review of this program, and they recommended to NASA to revive the program. So that happened under the leadership of uh, Jay Falker and Jason Derleth, both of whom still work for NASA. Jay now manages our early stage portfolio, and Jason is now the program executive for NIAC. So that started back up in 2011. And so the current NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts has run since then.
So, how many of these applications for the concepts would you say that you receive, in a year?
We receive hundreds every year. Uh, we actually receive more now than we did in the original institute on an annual basis, and there are various reasons for that. We're much more we're able to reach out to the public a lot more than we have been than the institute has been, I think, in the past. Um, and we're also open now to NASA researchers as well. So the previous institute didn't allow anyone who was a NASA civil servant to apply for funding. So now we've opened that opportunity to NASA as well.
Okay. So, out of those kind of hundreds, how many in a year are likely to be picked up, for to be taken further? Do you think?
So in the most recent cycle of so we have two flavors of funding. The first is a phase one, that's for 9 months and $100,000, and that's the gateway for the next level of funding, which is phase two. If you successfully complete the phase one, you can apply for up to 2 years and $500,000 of funding. So in the most recent cycle of phase ones, we funded 15, and the most recent cycle of phase twos, we funded 7. So we have 7 new phase twos and 5 old phase twos. So concurrently, we're funding about 30 projects right now.
Okay. Um, I suppose one of the main questions that someone might ask is, considering all the wealth of talent and the personnel that exists at NASA already, why does the organization need to reach into the public sphere to get ideas and people with qualifications and entrepreneurs and things like that?
Well, the origin it's a good question. The original NASA Institute of Advanced Concepts that was formulated under the idea that um, there was, that NASA itself didn't have all the resources to come up with innovative ideas. Remember, the institute excluded NASA participation. So, so to answer your question, no, NASA doesn't have all the talent necessarily in house, and sometimes ideas can come from everywhere. So NIAC is really unique. We're open to innovations from garage inventors to academia to industry and people of all backgrounds. So if you look at our funding, um, our list of funded studies, they come from everywhere.
Hmm. But as I understand it, it's only residents of the United States. Isn't that correct?
It is anyone who is in the anyone who is physically in the United States can actually apply.
Okay.
So even if um, I don't want to get in too much trouble, but I believe even if you have like a tourist visa, right,
Uh-huh.
and your tourist visa exists, and lasts for a whole year, right, you could conceivably, apply for a phase 1 study and be funded under that. So as long
Okay.
as you are physically in the U.S.
Okay. So it's not completely ruled out for Europeans and people who live in the UK. I mean, you just have to be in the States, really.
Um, you have to be in the States to receive funding. However, you can lead a NIAC study uh, without funds in the form. You can PI a study. You can be a principal investigator in the UK, in anywhere in Europe, uh, but you won't receive funding. So you can have a collaborator in the United States that gets the funding, but you can still lead a study.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So, what kind of things do you usually look for in a submission? What is likely to get a particular idea picked up?
So NIAC funds, again, it funds the visionary aerospace concepts, aerospace and aeronautical concepts that are high risk um, down the road that may potentially break roadmaps, right? Um, so we're looking for mission architecture studies, studies that look at an entire kind of design for how a mission could be accomplished, and usually that's framed around novel technologies. Um, so in total, all this together, the ideas must be exciting. They must be unexplored to some extent, and they must be credible. So we're not just going to fund an idea that's blue sky, right? It's got to have some feasibility to it. So those are kind of the three criteria: exciting, unexplored, credible,
Hmm.
that we look for.
Yeah. And do you have any kind of personal favorites from past submissions? Are there any ones that particularly took your fancy?
I thought I'd be prepared to answer this question, but it's really a subjective question, and everyone's got their different favorites too. It's like ice cream, right? Um, and so the flavors of today. Uh, okay, so one of them is Torpor by John Bradford. I like this because it comes like straight out the pages of science fiction. But what he's doing is he's studying how to use induced hypothermia to enable long-term manned space exploration. So it's like putting someone in deep freeze, right? And slowing down the metabolism, um, and preserving health potentially as well, and reducing resources. I like this because it's kind of like, it's in pop culture, but he's doing a legit study on how to actually implement this. Um, Similarly, Hiro Ono has a really exciting idea too, and it could be science fiction, but it's not, because I think it's not popular. But he kind of made it up in some ways. He has an idea for comet hitchhiking, right? So he wants to shoot a tether into a comet and kind of let that pull him along and explore the solar system with it. So I think that's really cool. I think it could be like the crux of a script for Hollywood, right? And then there are some ideas that are a little more down to earth or closer to earth, maybe. One that I like is Chris Walker's Large Balloon Reflector. He's proposing to develop this half aluminized spherical reflector that you can put on this high altitude or orbital balloon. And so basically replacing these huge monolithic telescopes with even huger but lower costs and potentially more complex um, telescopes in orbit. So I like it too because it's got a lot of raw engineering to it. Like as an engineer, it really resonates with me, and he does a lot of testing too. Like I think he's bringing this system down to Antarctica. Um, I could keep going, but those are some Titan sub is a really cool one too, because it's like you just because you're bringing a submarine to Titan to explore the methane and ethane lakes there. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I often kind of wonder to what extent science is influenced by science fiction, because you kind of might think of it being the other way around, but, I kind of wonder how many of these ideas would actually exist if it wasn't for kind of the creativity of science fiction writers and, TV producers and things like that.
Oh yeah, I totally think. I mean, that's why Nyack is so exciting, and if we actually have you bring up a good point, because we have a very unique kind of a system within NIAC. It's we have this external council. It's kind of like an executive board in a company, and one of our members is actually a science fiction writer, and I could be wrong, but maybe a couple others may also write science fiction as well. But we do this because some of the science fiction that goes on, it's got elements of reality to it, right? And that kind of creativity really inspires a lot. Like I had mentioned, torpor was an example of one. The space elevator, that's a concept from the original Institute. It had been around for some time, but his name is slipping me right now, but I think Edwards is his last name. Maybe Bradley Edwards. I could be wrong, but he studied he studied a way to make space elevators feasible using carbon nanotubes. So that's an example again of something that was in science fiction that inspired something that could potentially happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So once the phase 2 funding comes to an end, is it likely that NASA will then take it on? I mean, does NASA always take phase 2 finished ideas on themselves and then develop them to completion, or how does it work?
Oh, that's a good question too. With these concepts with NIAC, it's kind of like farming. Some seeds take years to germinate, right? And that's kind of what we target for NIAC. It's not the seeds. It's not we don't. Not to say that NASA plants weeds, but we're not planting weeds, right? We're planting some great oaks that take time, and because of that, you don't often see these projects blossom immediately. So if you take a look at maybe the Institute, which was around, longer, right? So those projects had initiated some time ago. Some of those projects have actually come more to fruition and have been picked up. So I'll give you a good example. Webster Cash, he came up with an idea called the New Worlds Observatory. It uses an occulter to block portions of light from a star, so you can image exoplanets around it. And what's exciting about that is he actually disrupted roadmaps. He changed the way that NASA was going to perform this type of mission. And so now I believe he's received a lot of additional funding and support. And I think there's a very good chance it's going to be implemented in an upcoming mission beyond like JWST, which we're currently building. So another good example that's likely to potentially happen is Babak Saif. He's developed a method of interferometry, which is using light to detect changes in position, for example. He's developed quantum interferometry, looking at atoms, and he's able to detect small perturbations in gravity, small changes in gravity waves from that. So he's received I believe over $4 million of additional funding from NASA to develop that further, and that technique will beat out existing systems by at least an order of magnitude, with lower cost and lower complexity as well. So that's a more recent mission. And yeah, so I mean, you have different flavors of success. It's hard to define it sometimes, but we do have good examples all throughout.
Yeah, because I suppose one of the questions someone might ask is a lot of this is all kind of theoretical and hypothetical and looking to the future, but there are actually ideas that you have kind of seen come to fruition, as you say, and are actually being used and kind of helping future space exploration and study. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like yeah, we totally have ideas that are just paper and pencil. But then we have ideas that that people are actually building hardware for. Young Bay, for example, he has this photon laser thruster. Um, I saw it just last week. He held it in his hands, and every month he comes to me and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've increased the thrust level by another millinewton." It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually he's increasing it to the point where it's actually going to be like feasible to use. It's this thruster that just uses laser light, which is pretty awesome.
Can you just describe what that device actually does?
Oh, yeah. So it actually does it fires I believe it operates in the infrared regime, but it fires this concentrated light. I don't know it too well, but fires this concentrated light, and the idea is that the mission context he wants to use it for is to use it for formation flying, for satellite formations. um, and what he's envisioning is flying two satellites in tandem, uh, in orbits that are not natural, right? So a natural orbit would be something that would be in plane, that would cut straight through like the center plane of the Earth, right? But an unnatural orbit would be kind of offset slightly. So he wants to fly two of these in tandem in a pair, around the Earth, and by doing so, he can create this two satellite or multi-satellite formation for high resolution imaging. You can have this virtual aperture, so to speak, in some ways. And because it's photonic, um, it's very sensitive, right? So you can get high precision formations that you wouldn't be able to achieve in any other way. Um, so I think that's just really exciting. And again, he's an example of someone who's got hardware in his hand and um, test data as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I suppose finally, I just wanted to kind of say, looking to the future, what are your kind of hopes and ambitions for the Nyack project? So long as you are with it.
One thing I'm trying to start is an art competition, for the program, because I think art inspires creativity and thinking as well. Um, and art and science are and innovation. They're all kind of coupled in some ways. Like we talked about earlier, science fiction. You question whether or not science fiction inspires actual innovation, and I claim it does. And I think art does the same thing in many ways. Um, and a lot of our ideas don't sell without the art as well, without people being able to visualize and see what these complex ideas are. So I'd like to have that, and that's another way maybe people all over the world can participate. They can submit an piece of artwork as well. Um, so that's one thing I'd try to like to do. Um, I like to try to do more outreach for the program too. Um, so that's just talking to students to really get them excited about technology as well. Um, Hopefully um, we can expand NIAC too. So we can target. I'm hoping maybe someday we can look at maybe targeting specific technology needs and science needs within the agency. So right now we're soliciting ideas from every which direction, uh, from all over the place. But it'd be nice to also have focused kind of calls go out as well. So those are some targets that maybe near-term targets that I'm looking at.